Okay, people, so it's October 23rd, and really, all I got on my mind are those parsnips, the beets, the Swiss chard, that kind of stuff. But I have to get back into this stuff. Right? I have to reread everything to find out where I'm going wrong. I'm just showing you. This, I figured before I sit down and start typing this list of documents, I better locate where I am in the process. I'm not in the discovery process. I don't know where I am. Application to the court chambers. Application to the court. Choosing the correct form of proceedings. Guide to preparing an affidavit. Case planning conference. Well, we did that already. They just want to throw everything out. What is that? Proving your case in Supreme Court. Well, if it gets thrown out, I don't have to prove anything. I just have to try and keep it there so that one day I can prove something. Costs. Well, we already know I'm looking at $20,000 for 5 minutes of nothing. Well, we were in court 15 minutes. I don't know, people. So anyway, I have to find out how to list these documents in here somewhere. It's Form 22. I have to find Form 22. And don't forget, my eyes are like bugging out on me, okay? That's the thing. And I've got a lot of pressure around my eyes. If I was to go to a eye doctor right now, they'd probably say I'd have to go to an emergency, and it wouldn't be the first time. So there's Form 20. I think it's 22. Where's Form 22? Oh, God. Nothing there. Anyway, I have to find it, and this is where I am right now. You can see not much has moved, but I'm just going to start gathering this stuff up, right? Okay, people, I just want to say that I'm already starting to cry. Because this is so overwhelming. You know, I look at this stuff, and it's the hypocrisy around it. Too, right? The fact that I'm looking for Form 22. The fact that the court expects you to follow the rules, right? And they hold it against you because you don't know how, right? Because all you got on your mind are parsnips, beets, and Swiss chard. And just trying to maintain on holding your house down, right? You don't lose it. So that your grandson can have somewhat of a normal life, and the rest of your kids that are surviving this non-stop. Here's a checklist. Attack on your emotional well-being in regarding to people just disappearing in a civilized society. So yeah, at some point today, I'm probably going to just start crying because I can feel it. Because now that I'm here in this room, right? And I do work sometimes better under pressure in terms of like that notice of amendment, the notice of when I did the amendment, the judge ordered the amendment. He gave me 60 days to the amendment. Somebody offered to do it for me that was training to be a police officer, right? So therefore, she took the notice of claim, read it. She also took it to her school, had instructors and whatnot read it, and then she rewrote it. But because their language skills are not very good, it wasn't anything that I could rely on. So I had, I think 50, no, she gave, I had 10 days. I myself had 10 days to do the amendment on my own. And even then, when I went to submit it in the court, it was staged where I was forcing the court to take something that wasn't correct, because under the rules, the way I was submitting it isn't normally allowed. So there you go. Shoot yourself in the foot at the master's advice. While the lawyer uses that as an excuse to throw it out of court, so that the taxpayers pay to hide the truth of what's happened to Uncle John, this family, and to countless other thousands of people across the province of British Columbia, Canada. When you want to take it into the context of, you know, white-collar criminal activity and laundering of money, or extortion, or fraud, or whatever. So, as you can see, I'm fidgeting. Right? I'm fidgeting. And I'm going to end it on this note. As I'm fidgeting, and I'm making, what do you call that? A list of documents. And I'm looking at the court rules, and I myself can see the hypocrisy. I'm going to bring out these here. There's 3 of them. Got a lot more than that, people. And I'm going to just start typing this stuff out. What is this? Oh, the sister's info. No names mentioned. Ooh, the daughter's info. Adopted daughter's info. Ooh, the niece's info. Health Server Professional Incorporated. General information relating to the sisters. This is a binder full. Confidential guidelines for Canadian occupational health nurses. That's going to be listed, people. Yeah. And then something. That's one book. Type that out. And then this one here. All this stuff in here. You can see it. I guess I have to photocopy all this stuff. I don't know. This one talks about the actual care plan rules and regulations under the Community Living Act when it applies to assisted living, long-term care, and people in transition or going home and out of, like, from the hospital, going home and then building in that care support system in the home. And it just, like, rights, Community Care and Assisted Living Act, which is really not a very big act when you look at it. I don't know why they put so much emphasis on it, because they don't follow it. And that's the point of the lawsuit, people. They don't follow the rules. This is legislation. I still don't know. Okay, you got rules, you got laws, and you got mandates. And then you've got color of law, whatever that means. So, the Community Living Act, Community Care and Assisted Living Act, is it a rule? Is it a mandate? Is it a law? I don't know. All I know is that they broke the rules in terms of that care facility where John was at, right along with the hospital staff. And this is what Fraser Health wants to throw out, and the judge to allow that to happen, because I can't follow the rules. It's okay for them to not follow the rules, but not okay for me to not follow the rules when it comes to trying to present this to a court without fair legal representation. Release of persons. This talks about how you do it, which they didn't follow, people. Residential care regulations, which is different than an act, which is different than a rule, which is different than a mandate, which is different than a law. I'm not sure how that falls that grid. I don't know if it's up there. I don't know if a regulation is more important, or if it belongs lower down on that spectrum in terms of how important is that. So I'm going to list that under documents, because when we go through my notice of claim, we're going to talk about this. Assuming, you know what I'm saying, right? It's very easy for me to get cynical, people, because this is very personal. I'm walking the walk. And not only am I walking the walk, but I'm walking the talk. And I'm putting my life in danger the more I hold my ground. But my life is in danger anyway, people. That's the point. It became endangered the moment they started to conspire to do what they did to Uncle John at the expense of mistreating his immediate family. Just by the very nature of the way they were criminalizing me, accusing me of things, but never making it where it was documented in terms of a court of law. And I got punished for my crime, so that they could legally seize John's mind, his body, and his assets. At least he would have been able to see the kids. I would have been sitting in jail, and he would have been seeing the kids. Now he's in a dungeon, people, and I'm in a fishbowl. But I can jump out. John can't jump out. He's got balls and fucking chains on his ankles and his feet and his arms and his wrists, with some dog choker being pulled along, because these people they're sadistic, right? People who do this kind of stuff are sadistic. You can't expect me to follow the court rules if they themselves cannot follow the rules. Let's just read. This is what I have to type out. Monitoring, signaling, and communications. Equipment and furnishing. Character and skill requirement. Continue monitoring of employees. Something Fraser Health failed to do. Staffing coverage. Another thing that they failed to do. General health and hygiene. Having John rolling around in a freaking wheelchair as a nail biter with no fucking proper brakes is not hygienic. And keeping him in a diaper yet. Identification of person, access to person in care. Was he identified when he was transported from Vancouver across the ferry and showed up in an emergency, under an emergency situation at the Victoria General Hospital? Was that all documented with an identification number, or did they just sneak that shit in? Do you see where I'm going with this, people? Dispute resolution, released, and removal. They didn't want to there was no dispute. I was dubbed an elder abuser, and therefore they had to sneak John out of the fucking care facility in the middle of the night in a fucking hammock, more than likely, under the sedation of oxycodons. Because they knew that I was poor, and if the bank jumped on board like it did, right? And they started the rumor, there's that crazy lady, you know? When restraints may be used. I'd like to see that, people, because legally, through their mandates, rules, and regulations, they can drug people up to restrain them. But if they do that, they need to document it. And they started that from the day he showed up, and they started giving him drugs. Because drugs is listed as one of those restraints. The only thing is, they didn't tell him. Instead, they tried to dub him as confused, and it was nothing but his own body and his own brain without anything that made him confused. Even though he hadn't been on drugs for 23 freaking years. Notification of illness or injury. Reportable incidents. Here's a question. Okay, so he gets transported from Yale Center to the Victoria General Hospital in a period of 3.5 hours on an emergency situation because all of a sudden he's dying. Pneumonia came back and he can't breathe. And he's having a nervous fucking breakdown. Right? Did the people on this end document that? Or did they just say good riddance? You deal with it now. It's your problem. We got our siping off of doing what you asked us to do through that insider trading practice bullshit that goes on that employs actors before they employ healthcare professionals. All for that money, people. So as a lawyer, I would be requesting that information for the judge to have Fraser Health cough it up. Where's Uncle John's file? Record for each person. I don't know. I'd have to read that one over again. Short-term care plan on and something there. Care plan 81. Implementation of care plan. There's certain rules, regulations, and mandates that they're supposed to follow. They didn't. Use of restraints to be recorded. Well, broken wheelchair, inadequate physiotherapy, and a whole lot of fucking drugs sounds like a restraint to me, as you're running around now targeting the immediate family who happen to be children, teenagers, and vulnerable adults, and dubbing them as criminals just so you can sneak Uncle John off into a dungeon. How the hell am I going to represent myself with so much anger inside of me, people, to a judge that doesn't want to hear it? Because he's too busy protecting the corporation. The taxpayers' dollars, the people who pay him to be a shyster himself. So they can go in line and be ripped off when it's their turn. Records of complaints and compliance. Anyway, that's what I have to type out in the next few days. Because it's all evidence. This is the residential care regulations. This is the sections of it. This is very important. And then it just goes on and on. Okay? This is what I gotta psych myself up for. As I'm getting mad. Because it's making me sick, people, and it's taking away from the quality of my family's life. But if I don't do it, my family will never be at peace. And neither will Uncle John. And then, I got a little red book here, specifically designed to log bank crap. Bank Act. And then it's sections. Not much in here, but there's something in here. About intellectual property, power of attorneys, that kind of stuff. And then it looks like I got some of this non-profit stuff in here. The last time I had a chance to do my income statement for the non-profit. Do you see that? That's the income statement for the non-profit. I'm going into the 3 years being behind again. But the Revenue Canada, they know how I operate, right? They know I'm always stressed out. You know, got people trying to derail me left, right, and center. So they know it's just a matter of time before I have the time to sit down and do this over and send them in. It's one of those grease down moments. Anyway, that's just 3 of them. I have like a whole bunch more binders around here, people. But before I start, I have to look for Form 22, and I don't know where it is because everything's all mixed up again. And just, you know, you can see, people, what I've done, right? You can see. I've already done, like, lots. These are court cases. These are all court cases. Right? In relation to either together or as a singular. These are all together. What does that say? Money, student, bank. How the bank, how the government just comes in and takes over through the banking system, just takes over people's accounts. Right? This is strictly related to the bank in terms of court cases where People have taken the bank to court, right, for fraudulent activity, right? This one's just Fraser Health by itself in relation to people's rights somewhere in the Ontario area. See, if you notice, a lot of them are Bank and Fraser. They're together. They're applicable to each other. So technically, that's why I say I want to bring them together. I separated them initially because I was trying to separate in my head. But it needs to be dealt with together, right? Because, you know, one is probably more culpable than the other. But I don't know who, right? I say they're both equal. They're equal partners, too. So I have to list down, I guess, all of these. I did list them under my notice of claim, but that's not the way they want it, right? They want it, I guess, under documents. So that's what I'm going to do, documents. Now, let's all speed read together, okay? Read all that, and then go on to the next, and the next, and the next, and the next. And then come back and tell me how you feel.